So, before I get onto the top 10 list, I would like to set a few ground rules first. So, number 1, 2-part stories will be counted as one story. This is mainly for the sake of ease. Number 2, Christmas specials, and including Tenant Swans as well, won't be included in the list because that is sort of a list for another day, and while The Waters of Mars is great in its own respect, I'll probably do another top 10 focusing on the specials another day. Anyway, with that out of the way, here's my top 10 ranking of the 10th Doctor's stories. This may be a bit divisive. Number 10, Smith and Jones. Note being episode 2, series 3, Smith and Jones is still a pretty enjoyable episode. It first introduced us to Martha, of course, and we first saw the appearance of the Jadoon, the space police, if you will. While I do enjoy the episode to this day, and to an extent of course, it suffers from a lacklustre villain. I don't really find the Plasma all that entertaining, despite the fact that she is very terrifying. Okay, moving on to number 9, Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead. I think the dislikes are going to start coming in about now. It's not that I don't like the story, but the other episodes on the list have kind of pushed it up to this spot. I have to admit, the premise of the story is very cool. The Vash and the Rada are very terrifying villains for the story. Plus, this has my favourite variation of the 10th Doctor's suit, which we previously saw in Time Crash. And do I really need to mention that this is the first episode with River Song in it? Yeah, it's still a very decent episode. Right, number 8, The Doctor's Daughter. The story for this episode is pretty good for the most part, but the biggest problem I had was there wasn't really a main villain in the story. But other than that, the episode was very enjoyable, and Jenny was an interesting character, and I'm sure along with many other fans, would love to see her return in the series alongside perhaps a current Doctor. Now, I am aware that Jenny has appeared somewhat to a degree in some expanded media, and as someone who doesn't really listen to any Big Finish, I'm unsure if she's actually in it. So, number 7, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. Another 2-part story. This saw the introduction of the Ood into the show, and I have to say, while the story itself is pretty meh to an extent, it's still enjoyable, and I think this could be where we begin to see the romantic sort of subplot between Rose and the Doctor. I wouldn't actually say it's a subplot, actually, it's sort of the main plot along with the other episodes. And another cool idea that we got was, well, Satan controlling the Ood. And still, it's really cool. I do enjoy the 2-parter to this day. But then the 2 episodes following it just let down the end of Series 2 for me. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you'll understand. Number 6, The Fires of Pompeii. So, this story for the most part is extremely enjoyable, and it's definitely one of the highlights of Series 4. I also enjoy the idea that it was actually the Doctor who caused the Vesuvius explosion. Anyway, it's not like he caused any other disasters. Wait a minute. Okay, never mind. But still, the episode itself is definitely a highlight in Series 4. Okay, moving on to the top 5 is The Girl in the Fireplace. One of the fan favourite Series 2 stories. This is one of my favourites in Doctor Who, where we see the Doctor courting Madame de Pompadour. And I'm sure this is the only royal that he's courted. Hold on. Okay, scratch that. Turns out he married Queen Elizabeth I in Day of the Doctor, but still, this episode is one of my favourites, and the ending itself is very sombre. Madame de Pompadour really waited for the Doctor to return, and that time window was a pretty good role to play in the story. Okay, number 4, Tooth and Claw. This story is most certainly a fan favourite for many reasons. Firstly, the premise of the film is... Sorry, that's a problem in the script. The premise of the story is brilliant. Fighting a werewolf alongside Queen Victoria is a great premise for an episode, and it's definitely one of the standouts in Series 2. And another side note here, the plot arc in Series 2 is definitely one of my favourites, alongside the whole Mr. Saxon subplot. The fact that it was actually Queen Victoria who formed Torchwood was very interesting, and of course that would play a very big role in the 2-part finale, which we will get to, don't worry. Number 3, so we're on to the top 3 now, Human Nature / The Family of Blood. Okay, hear me out, because I know a lot of people genuinely love this story. While I like the story myself, it's not good enough to be my top pick, but still, fantastic story, and we see a darker side to the Doctor at the end of this whole story. And I'm saying story for the sake of these, so people don't put in the comments, well, the story's actually in 2 parts, dumbass. If any of the Doctor Who nerds are going to comment, then they'll just be deleted. But still, I found the episode very enjoyable, and the concept of a Time Lord becoming a human was actually pretty interesting to me. Number 2, Utopia. Probably my favourite episode of Series 3 by far. This episode has a lot of strengths. The first crossover with the spin-offs, the return of Captain Jack, and the return of a masterful villain. I apologise for that joke, it was terrible. The Master, and he's honestly brilliant, and if you've listened to the Master on Big Finish, especially most of Jacoby's War Master, you may have a different feeling when watching this, because I've heard about all this stuff with the Master and Big Finish and how it's all the big deal, and I have to say, after listening to some stuff on other people's YouTube videos, I can understand why some people like it. Okay, before we get to the number 1, it's tradition to include some honourable mentions, so here are mine. 42, The Lazarus Experiment, Planet of the Ood, Unicorn the Wasp, The Idiot's Lantern, and School Reunion. And, finally, my number 1 pick is Love and Monsters. I'm just kidding with you. It's Fear Her. Nope, I'm kidding again. It's Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Okay, all jokes aside, this spot was kind of difficult to fill because any of the finale 2-parters could have filled this spot, but in the end, I've got to give it to Series 2 because not only do we get a payoff to the series arc of Torchwood being introduced, but we also witness one of the greatest moments in New Who history, in my opinion, where the Daleks, the Doctor's deadliest foes, meet the Cybermen, the second of the Doctor's deadliest foes. But then there's the most depressing moment in the series where Rose and the Doctor are separated forever. I said that in quotes. Because Rose returned in Series 4, so they weren't technically separated forever. But then in Journey's End, Rose is left on the parallel Earth with a part human, part Time Lord version of the Doctor. It's very confusing. I'm not going to get into it. But still, I'm certain that most Whovians, myself included, can't watch the end of Doomsday without crying. And I include myself in that, as I've just literally said. Anyway, it would be pretty cool to see Rose somehow return to the main universe. Whether it's part of a giant crossover, I know Jack's probably going to be in Revolution of the Daleks, that's probably just a rumour. And maybe at some point, maybe in another series or 2, Rose could pop up again with a new Doctor or something. Still, it will be really, really cool if Rose actually managed to come back. There haven't really been that many ties to the Russell T Davies era of the show, excluding Jack and Fugitive of the Jadoon, because that was basically a cameo. And the Doctor and Jack never even interacted in that episode, which would have been cool. I think Chibnall could have pulled it off, considering he used to write for Torchwood. Yeah. Anyway, that basically does it for this video. Now, if you have any quarrels with my list, A, go make your own, secondly, grow the hell up. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it.